Welcome to Book D. This is the first song from the lesson book in Level D. It sounds a little bit like Halloween, so it's kind of fun. It says mysteriously, so you don't go too fast. It's in a minor key. And as always, we want to learn this in phrases. So we want to start with about 2 measures at a time, and I always like to add the next note or chords to the first phrase, and then start with repeating that one too. That way, when you put them back together, it's just a little easier to do that. This is a little trick I've learned. We have some eighth notes here. The eighth notes, traditionally we count eighth notes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you know, that's a lot for a child. So I like to just have them work on listening to those ticks. Tick, 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 tick. So when the metronome's playing, they can hear that, or you can say that out loud as they're doing it. I always say tick on the very first note of the eighth notes. The second one is nothing. You say nothing on that one. Or you could just count the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what that sounds like with the counting. Generally, it's just the kids can kind of get it. If you just demonstrate it, they can hear that. I think that they can learn this one pretty easily when it's nice and steady like this. And that was a theme that I just played. And then there's a little bit of a variation from a theme, where the pattern in the left hand is starting with fifths, and then we do fourths. The third is with the B flat, and then we go back to fourth and fifth. So there's no seconds in this one. So this is how it begins. It begins with piano, which is quiet. And I would say that would be the first phrase. The second phrase, you're going to hold down the chord, the fifth, which is the G and the D. You're going to hold this down for 8 counts, so it doesn't come up again until you're ready to play that half note. It sounds like this. Next phrase begins. Notice this is mezzo forte, so this is a little louder. I like to have them bring it up in volume as they come up the keyboard, and then as they come down, you can take the volume down a little bit. And then the next phrase sounds like this. Notice we have we have half notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they just repeat. In fact, these 2 measures are just the same. They could practice this by playing this over and over and over and over again, and then adding this back in later. If that's too tricky to add those 2 notes in later, don't worry about it. When they put these 2 together, it will just work from muscle memory if they practice playing these over and over again. This phrase sounds like this. Oops, it didn't sound. And if they were to repeat it, and then the next one goes back to the theme, which is the same as what we played up here. And then the next phrase is also a 5-finger pattern that goes straight down, just like we did here. Here's a quarter note. Now we're going to end on an 8th note, and then there is a rest. So it's a little bit shorter, and we don't go back to A. We're going to go up to C, and then D, and then C, and then end up here. Notice that's a quarter note. Can be tricky because these all finish on an 8th note, and this is a quarter, and then the G, and this is just a half note. Then they lift right there because we've got some rest there. So this phrase sounds like this. Notice we're doing our fifths, fourths, thirds, fourths, and then back to the 5th again. It sounds like this. That up. Let me just play that again. Whoop. Okay, so that needs to come up there. And then it finishes with a forte. When you play it, the child, once they can play all the phrases, the child should play to the repeat, bounce it back, play from the beginning all the way through, ignore the repeat on the second time, and then finish strong with a forte there. I'm going to set the metronome at 80, and I'm going to play it through one time so that you can hear how it sounds all put together. And that's that one. The technique book, you always want to start with practice with the technique book. And this is the theme in A to the piece we just played. This is the variation down below. I'll just play through this so that you can hear how it goes. This is just a warm-up so that when they go back to play the actual solo, they can do it. Rest. And then at the end, it's thirds. So let me play that again for you so you can hear it properly. Up, there you go. Then you're done. And then for B. Notice that's not held down, so this is just a quarter note there, and then you have some rests. So you play the right hand all by itself. Pay attention to the rest there. Notice there's a little bit of a space there with that sound. But no staccato, it's just short. All right, so that's the book work. And then the paperwork is drawing in your intervals. So you'll draw in whatever it tells you to do here. You draw them in a third, a second, a fourth, a fifth, a third. And then also, it's not as important to get the stems right like they're asking you to. It's more important to be able to recognize what it is. That helps with sight reading later. It helps to decode your music. And we also need to practice the names of the notes. So they can draw those in. This one's a little more fun. It's like an I Spy. They're asking you all these things. Can you find these below? If you see them, you check it off. If you don't see what they're asking for, you leave it blank. And I will tell you, as a cheat sheet, there are 3 missing. All right, have fun this week.